You're listening to The Artist Athlete, episode 21. Hey friends, fans, and enemies. I'm Shannon McKenna, and I'm the host of the Artist Athlete podcast and the founder of theartistathlete.com. I wanted to start off this episode of the podcast by playing a little clip that doesn't quite belong in the interview, but I thought would be really helpful in this introduction because in it, we start to talk about why I created this podcast. So I'm going to play that little clip right now, and then I'll start with the introductions. First of all, there's nothing out there like this, I feel like, that really features artists, not features companies. In ballet, people know who all the principal dancers in the New York City Ballet are. They know, the greats. And in...
Same with Broadway.
Broadway,
people can become Broadway stars, but I feel like, actually, something I've thought about a lot is that on Broadway or something, when you go see a Broadway show, you get a little pamphlet, and there's always on the door, it tells you who's playing what that night. It's updated every day. And I hate that in big companies or the small companies, because acts get switched out off all the time and stuff. They don't always update programs and stuff. The artists don't get the credit. Even if they had a little bulletin board outside of the tent that just said who's doing what that night, gives them a little bit more credit.
Yeah, I guess in traditional circus, right, they have a ringleader and announcer
who announces everyone, but that's not how it works
But
nowadays.
Because we don't have that. Shannon back here again in real time. Well, I guess not technically real time because I'm not speaking to you live, though it would be so cool to do a live recording of the Artist Athlete podcast. But yeah, so that little chunk of audio, I wasn't quite sure where to put in the interview, but I did think it was important because it is the purpose of this podcast. It's dedicated to circus, and it's dedicated to all the artists and their processes as they pursue this art form. And not only is it dedicated to individual artists, it's also funded by individual donors. If you would like to fund the Artist Athlete podcast, you can go to patreon.com/theartistathlete to give a monthly donation. Patreons get cool Artist Athlete swag. I'm in San Francisco this week, but I get back to Atlanta next week, and I have a huge box of Artist Athlete podcast stickers, and I'm going to send them all over the world from Missouri to Melbourne. I have Patreons everywhere. So thank you to everyone who's donated. If you want to become a Patreon, patreon.com/theartistathlete, make your contribution. It's getting chilly, friends, fans, and enemies, and I thought it might be nice to do a little back to school episode. But of course, because this is a circus podcast, it has to be a back to circus school episode. And so today, I caught up with a current student from l'École Nationale de Cirque in Montreal. L'École, or the school, or ENC, as it's commonly called, is probably the most well-known school in North America. Its proximity to Cirque du Soleil and several other major circus companies makes it a strategically desirable and extremely competitive school for budding artists. Graduates receive a college diploma in circus arts. My guest today is one of its current students, Ron Oppenheimer. Ron is going into his third year at ENC, but has been training circus since he was 8 years old. He learned Chinese acrobatics, Chinese pole, hoop diving, and several other disciplines at the San Francisco Circus Center under the guidance of Master Liu Yi, as well as studying many different forms of dance. He chose to pursue a professional career in circus over enrollment in the far less competitive computer science program at MIT. In addition to his training at the school, Ron also runs the Instagram account Circus Around the World, which features creative and innovative content in circus from all around the world. Here's my interview with Ron Oppenheimer. So Ron Oppenheimer, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
The pleasure is always all mine.
I'm happy we're both in the same city at the same time.
I know, right? When do you go back to school?
I start school on August 31st.
Cool. And so for the people at home, where do you go to school?
I go to school at the National Circus School, or as many people call it, ENC, in Montreal.
I always call it, whenever I try to explain ENC to people, I always say it's like the Harvard of circus schools.
I think the reason that ENC gets this kind of like hubbub about it, in a sense, is the fact that it's across the street from Cirque du Soleil, and it's in the same city as the headquarters for Cirque Galois and Seven Fingers.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people we see in our day-to-day lives work for those companies, or our coaches occasionally work with those companies. So we're just like kind of located in a good place to end up working for those companies.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people end up doing.
So before ENC, how'd you get started?
So I got started into circus when I was around 8 years old, and I'm now 20, so longer than I expected. But essentially I was doing dance and gymnastics when I was younger. I moved to a new gym and there wasn't a men's program. And so my mom was like, why don't you try the circus class over here? Like in the same gym, they just have a couple circus classes, and I tried it.
Was this in San Francisco?
This was over in the East Bay at Head Over Heels.
Okay.
In Splash Circus.
Okay.
And that's where I first met my first aerial coach, Veronica.
Veronica Blair.
Yes.
Veronica Blair has also been on the podcast.
Yes, I know.
So, yes.
Episode
so
19. Shout out to her.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I just like fell in love with it immediately, and like started doing tissue and rope and like juggling and acrobatics and like less gymnastics-y stuff. And then as I kept going, I ended up moving over to Circus Center here in San Francisco and started doing more Chinese acrobatics, so like Chinese pull, hoop diving, and I still maintained like rope and tissue. And then I ended up like hearing about ENC. I found out about ENC when I was 9 years old, but I apparently told my mom I want to go there.
Really?
I have no recollection of this. But when I got to Circus Center, I met a bunch of people within the youth program who their older siblings went to the school, and they all ended up going to the school, so it kind of became like, I can do that because they did. Mm-hmm. So that became my goal. And then I just like, all the way through middle school, all the way through high school, like I was doing all my regular academics and applying to regular colleges, but I was like very much determined to go to ENC.
Can you talk about the audition process?
They have multiple different places you can do the audition. I did mine in Montreal, which is the most stressful one, I would say, because it's
interesting.
Instead of a day long, it's 4 days.
Yeah.
And they kind of evaluate you on everything every single day. So like the first day, it's acro, flexibility, conditioning, dance, acting, and like I think more, I don't really remember. And then they make a cut. And if you survive the cut, you go to the next day. And then if you survive that cut, you go to the next day where you have to show your act and do a couple other things. And then if you survive that, you go back to the next day and you do everything again. And you try out in some classes. And then you have to wait a month or two and find out if you got in. And each of those days are like 7:30 to like 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. And it's a lot more waiting than it is actually doing things. So you have to learn to like warm up, and then you cool down, then warm up again. So it's like destroys your body just from that week. And it's the fact that they place it in February, which is usually one of the coldest months in Montreal. And when I did my audition, it was about -40 the entire week.
Oh my gosh.
So it was, and I'm from the Bay Area, in California, like, so I was like dying. But I remember getting to the airport and the window, like I was with my mom because I was still in high school. She wanted to come with me, but like the airport doors opened. And we were like, oh, we're just getting into the Uber, like, it'll be fine. So we were like, had our jacket on, but like didn't put much else. And the wind came in and hit us, and we literally like turned around, like our eyes were already watering. We were like, no, we can't do this. And like had to take a minute and then like bolt as fast as we could into the Uber because we were freezing to death.
Montreal in winter. Mm-hmm. That's intense.
Hard part, at least going to school when it's winter, is that like I usually started classes about 8:30 every morning, but I would get there at 7:30 to warm up. Sun rises at 7:30, so I miss the sun in the morning. And usually the sun would start setting around like 4:30, and like the earliest I'd finish maybe is like 5:30ish. And then sometimes I finish at like 9 p.m. Depends on the day. Yeah. And then it's like you're really sore on the weekend, so unless you have something to do, you don't really want to leave your house other than to get groceries. So I just didn't see much sun.
I think that would be the killer for me. Like,
it makes it really hard.
I can do cold, but sun, oh, you need it. So yeah, what is an average day in the life of a student at ENC?
And it was set up at like, you start at 8:30 to 10:30. You have 2 hours of like either like your discipline or just two classes.
2 hours of your discipline or classes.
Yeah.
And do you know your discipline going in?
Yeah, so I auditioned to the school to do Chinese pole and hoop diving, but then I got accepted for only Chinese pole, which I'm actually very happy about because I always love Chinese pole more and it gives me more time to focus on it. Yeah. So I know that like my main major, which means I had about 6 hours in my first year, 7 in my second, I'm going to have 3 going into my last year, or not 3, 8 going into my last year.
And that's a week?
That's per week, yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's including like having an artistic advisor for some of those hours in your second and third year. But essentially you kind of train everything. So like you have your specialty that you train pretty much every day, but you also get to work on, everyone has to take handstands in order to graduate to school. Everyone has to take juggling. Everyone takes a dance class every year, an acting class, like movement classes.
Are there certain posts that you have to do in order to pass the class?
We get like a little syllabus at the beginning of each year, like through our email system with the school, and it kind of tells you like the things they grade you on. It's more about like, everyone does handstands, but if you're an aerialist, you might struggle more with handstands because your shoulders might end up not moving the same way, and not everyone's built the same way because we do a bunch of different disciplines and we all take a handstand class together.
Yeah.
So the teachers are like, get that, and they know how to teach each person who comes from different disciplines to like get them to where they need to be. And then within your own discipline, it's usually like in your first year, there's a lot of things that are set that you should try and learn. But then there's also a whole aspect of it. It's like research and like what you can create. And that's a majority of the grade, depending on the teacher. So like for me, when I got into my second year, it was like day one, she was like, what do you want to work on this year? Like how much, like, are there any tricks you want to get? And the ones I really wanted to get, like she put on the syllabus for me because it was very specialized for me. And then like a solid like 30-40% of it is just research and like what I make up, because we do a lot of that at school, so not everyone's not doing the exact same tricks.
No, that's so cool. And that's, I think, what fascinates me so much about this school is that you have that time to like really do that artistic research and plug in, so you are doing things that literally nobody else is doing.
I would say we're really lucky in a sense, the fact that we get like I've been having in my last year 8 hours of pole a week, and a lot of that is either one-on-one with my coach or with 2 students and 1 coach at the same time and stuff, which I also love to have. I love to not only be one-on-one because my friends have different styles and stuff and we inspire each other, or sometimes they have an idea and they're like, it wouldn't really work the way my body's built as much, or like it's not my style, like you try it, or like I have an idea and I'm like, I have no desire to try it myself, but I know it would work for you, so you try it and stuff. And it's just the fact that the facilities give us gigantic mats so we can throw stuff and be like, if we fall, we land on the mat. And we have 2 different pits in the school, so for aerialists who want to like try release moves on rope or tissue or any apparatus, they can just throw it, and worst thing, you fall into the pit. So it gets rid of all the fear of trying new skills, because like if you're going to try and do a vree or a pirouette on rope where you let go and you catch again, like even if you have mats, it's kind of really, really intimidating to learn. Usually we learn those on mats, but there are some when you're making up new skills that it's like, just go over the pit. If something goes wrong, like you're fine. You
guys have all the time. Great facilities. Can you talk about the coaches as well?
The coaches are absolutely incredible. Like I couldn't love them more. They're usually I either come from having been like artists in the past, or they were dancers or anything, and they've all like learned how to coach as well. And they're super supportive, and they know how to individualize like their coaching styles to different people and like coach for the person. And so a lot of times like they help us a lot, and they get really invested in helping us create new skills and like make an act and stuff, which is absolutely incredible.
Well, if you think about it, I also want to ask about academics there.
So you have in your first year, like if you're an Anglophone coming in, you take an English class and a French class, and we have this class that's really, really interesting called like Arts de Cirque. It changes every week. One day it's like art, like circus history, the next day it's like rigging, the next day it's nutrition, the next day it's like taping, and that evolves. Like in the next year you have more hours of that and you learn more things, and it like develops on itself. And so the one hard part is it's usually after training. So usually our academic classes start at like 6 p.m, which isn't necessarily late, but you've been training since 8:30 in the morning.
Oh man,
you're tired.
Oh my gosh.
But like there's nowhere else to put them in the day, so that's just where they go.
Yeah. I guess the other reason I'm asking you particularly about academics is because you mentioned before that you turned down MIT to go to ENC.
I did. Throughout all of high school, I was like, the rule with my family was if I want to go to circus school and like pursue that as a career, that's fine, as long as I keep my grades up and get into a bunch of good schools in case I don't get into a circus school I want to go to. I was a little crazy. I followed my sister's lead and applied to 30 universities.
You applied to 30 schools?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Which is crazy. But I ended up getting into MIT early action, so I was super duper happy. So I knew that like ENC doesn't work out because that audition was in February.
Wait, you applied to 30 schools early?
Not all of them had early action.
Right.
But like everyone that did, I did, and everyone that didn't, it was already done.
Sure.
So I like was done with all of that before having to think about ENC, which was really, really nice. So when I went to that audition for ENC, I knew I was already into MIT and a few others. So I was like, if it doesn't work out,
yeah, that's got to feel good.
I have something to do that I can be happy with.
Yeah.
Which definitely like helped a little bit of stress. Not like if I don't get into here, I have nothing to do with my life. But yeah, when I got to school, like I was intrigued because I'm very, very like into academics and stuff, so I wasn't sure what it was going to be like. I think the hardest part for me was the fact that I'm much more of a math and sciencey person, and ENC doesn't have any math classes for the college program at all, or like science class for the college program. It's much more like an English class. It's more literature, and which is just not my cup of tea in a sense.
Do you have any outlets for your math and science brain?
Yes, over the summer I just like, or when I have free time, I learned Python like online using Codecademy, and
I do not know what that is.
It's a programming language.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and I just like learned a couple other ones just for fun. I think that's one of the reasons I got really into Instagram, is because like reading all the statistics and stuff is really, really interesting, because I like took statistics in high school, and it's just like fun playing with that and stuff. So it's not really the same. And in terms of like actually circus stuff, I don't really like do it on paper or anything, but in my head I can like really break down how things work in terms of the anatomy of a body, and like just like how it works with physics, and like where they're pushing and stuff just to make things happen. I find that really interesting. It's like something I always think about.
So you talked a bit about this, or you mentioned Instagram. You have an Instagram account, Circus Around the World.
Yeah, that page is kind of funny. The reason I made an Instagram, I think about 3 years ago for my personal page. Mm-hmm. I had no idea. I had been super against Instagram in the past, because like I don't know, when it first came out, and I was like, I used Facebook, but I wasn't really all that into social media, and I was like, all you do is share photos, and I think like, why would anyone do that? And like, it just didn't like the whole concept of it. Like, I was like, no, I was just super against it and thought it was stupid.
Yeah.
And then eventually I realized like, okay, maybe I should like make an account, because I'm a circus artist and that could be cool. And I heard about all these circus pages that like feature people, and like not just for circus, but like dance pages. And I was like, oh cool, I want to get featured on one of them. Didn't happen in a week. It just hadn't happened in a week. And I was like, you know what? I'll never get featured. I'll make my own.
That's amazing.
So in a sense, it was kind of like, it was created so that I could feature myself.
But it's Circus Around the World.
Well, I know that was because I had to feature people, and then I could also occasionally feature myself, was like the initial concept behind it.
Yeah.
Because I knew nothing about Instagram at the time.
Yeah.
And it definitely evolved over time. I really just like, it started out by, I was like, the people I followed on my personal account that were like really, really big on Instagram, I would just like repost some of their stuff and tag them. Mm. And then they started using the hashtag, because no one had ever used the hashtag Circus Around the World until I made the account.
Yeah.
So I would tag them, and then eventually they started using the hashtag, and then their people they followed saw that they were using that hashtag and also started using it. And then it just slowly just grew and grew and grew exponentially. And then like, I think it wasn't that much work for me in a sense, because I would post people twice a day just looking through the hashtag like Circus Around the World to find content I thought deserved to be like a featured.
Yeah. That's cool, because you kind of like you had this hashtag that you could source the content from.
That's why it was great, because everyone started using it, but then I was like, that was my way of finding the material, so it made it really easy for me in a sense. Mm-hmm. In a way, accidentally, I kind of developed this whole community of people like sharing circus for each other, and then I was kind of the place where like people could go to like see what people are doing all over the world.
Yeah.
And I think
I love that.
There are a ton of other circus pages, and they're all great in their own ways. But what I really liked is, because I'm like very much a circus artist myself, that I can kind of tell what's like new and innovative. Like, I haven't seen that before, especially now that I go to a school where I see a bunch of shows all the time that come to Montreal and stuff. It's really nice to kind of be able to like see someone and be like, oh, I've never seen that before. Like, I don't think that's been done, and then feature it, and then like see them grow more.
I remember you featured I did one. When we were at the Adelaide Fringe, I recorded a foot juggler from some circus, and you put it on the account, and I was like, I made it on Circus Around the World, and I didn't even know it was you.
A lot of people don't, and I find that really funny, because it says it on the description that it's like run by Ron Oppenheimer, but like people don't really read that and stuff. Like, actually the other day, one of my very, very good friends when I grew up doing circus, her older sister like sent me a message on the account being like, wait, is that you, Ron? Like, I had no idea. And I was like,
so funny.
It's been 3 years of running the page. Really?
There's also someone at ENC, I feel like it was ENC, who created Circus Every Damn Day, too.
I don't know who runs that page.
No, it's not a page, it's
the hashtag. I think that hashtag was created by ENC people, and I freaking love that hashtag.
I know,
but that's why I didn't want to like take over anyone's hashtag, which now there is a Circus Every Damn Day that features people.
Oh, really?
But like, when I made mine, I was like, I don't want to take a hashtag that's already being used and start using it. I was like, I'm going to make one so I don't like take over a different culture in a sense, but...
Oh, the Instagram world.
I don't know, but I was like, I'm very happy with what it's become, and now it's like, I've gone places and people are like, oh, you're a circus artist, and it's like, they're really excited to see me, and I'm like, surprised, because like, when I went to auditions for ENC, I had no idea this would happen, but like, I got there, and almost everyone knew who I was. Like, people who went to the school and, like, people auditioning, like, they knew who I was by name, by my face. They, like, knew where I went to high school. They knew some of my friends' names that I posted on my personal account stuff. And I was, like, really, really surprised because I had never experienced that before because I'd always been in the Bay Area.
Right.
And I was like, whoa, this is terrifying. I'm, like, kind of Instagram famous, and I didn't know that was a thing, and I never thought that would happen to me. And I've gotten more used to it and stuff.
Yeah.
I think last year, like, I was at school and during my second year, and there are, like, new students that come in every year. And there's someone I talked to, like, for a couple months already, and, like, 3 months into school, one day he's like, you run circus around the world? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, I had no idea. And I was like, really? And I was like, okay. And I was like, I've just gotten used to people, like, getting surprised about that. But
gotcha.
I just find it fun now.
The podcast is doing that to me, too, where people are like, oh, my God.
You run that? And they're like, oh, that's so cool.
Well, it's kind of obvious because when I talk.
That's true.
But it's the disembodied voice thing for me.
That's
people
also
are like,
very
oh, my
true.
God.
Yeah.
This is what you look like? I'm like, yeah.
It's also for me that, like, I kind of like how people don't only know me as, like, the guy that runs circus around the world. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like if I was just that, I wouldn't like that. Because, like, I want, as a circus artist, to, like, what I do still defines me.
Right,
and
totally.
Like, that's why I still, like, put almost more effort into my personal account, which has way less followers and stuff. But, like, I want the quality of that to be, like, really, really strong. Because I don't want it to just be like, oh, he runs circus around the world. I want it to be like, oh, he's a really, really incredible artist who also happens to run circus around the world.
This podcast is brought to you by The Artist Athlete. Did you know that The Artist Athlete is more than just a podcast? It's a growing online resource for students of the aerial arts to deepen their journey to badassery by accessing techniques approved by physical therapists and master coaches in the industry. Our current spotlight is on the fundamentals of aerial alignment, a practical manual for hanging upside down. This online manual is a step-by-step guide. It is complete with photos, videos, and exercises that you can implement immediately to help you gain the strength and awareness you need for an aerial practice that promotes shoulder health and longevity and good posture upright, so you don't walk around like a gorilla. But don't just take my word for it. Here's circus physical therapist Dr. Jen Crane of Cirque Physio to tell you more.
The fundamentals of aerial alignment is an absolute must-have for every aerialist of every level. I can't even tell you how many shoulder injuries I treat that are a direct result of rushing past the basics in an attempt to get a trick too soon. In the manual, Shannon deconstructs the fundamentals, including the correct muscular engagement to safely arrive in these positions and the rationale for why it matters. Of course, in addition to all of these fabulous pearls of wisdom, the book is also ridiculously fun to read. It's been lovingly garnished with the Shannon humor we all know and love.
Thanks, Jen. Cirque Physio is also featured in the book to give scientific insight into why it all works. Pick up your copy today by going to theartistathlete.com and clicking e-manuals. Listeners of the podcast can get a 10% discount by typing in the offer code PODCAST at checkout. Again, that's theartistathlete.com, offer code PODCAST. Now, back to the show. So in your personal account, you're showing that you want to show that you're a good artist or a strong artist. How much of the research that you're doing right now in the school do you put on that account?
Not a ton of it. Mm-hmm. It depends. It's a lot harder for what I do for Chinese pole to, like, make new things necessarily, because it's like the pole doesn't really bend or move. So it's kind of just like how you move around it. So a lot of it is like people can do if two people do the exact same skill, if they do it in a different way, it's researchy and different in a sense. So it's more about the whole act as a whole. There is, like, a bunch of specific technique that, like, I've made up in a sense, and a lot of it is online now, but I definitely, like, kept it secret for a solid, like, year till it was, like, flawless enough to post online, because I was like, I didn't want to kind of, like, show that I was working on it and have other people take it in a sense, because like, if they were to do that, I can't even be mad at them, because once it's online, like, it's out there.
Yeah.
And stuff, so, like, I'm not going to get mad at someone for being inspired by it and trying it as well. But I wanted to have it really, really well, so that, like, it was known that I had it first because I, like, made it up or something.
Right, totally.
But once I'm comfortable enough sharing it, I'm happy when people, like, research on it, and, like, if they give me credit for it, or if they, like, innovate from it, I'm like, I think that's great.
Okay, so a lot of people who listen to the podcast know of the school, or maybe they don't. And so can you talk maybe about what the third year is about? in the program?
So
ENC is a 3-year program.
ENC is a 3-year program or a 4-year program. They have this
really?
special like pre-year called mise à niveau,
or
the upgrade year, where essentially it's pretty much like doing the first year, but you do the auditions again in February to see if you get like back into the full program, because it's kind of like a place for like people they have a lot of hopes for but aren't quite sure about yet, or they didn't have enough space in the program, so they just like had to put you in that year.
That sucks.
Or for certain disciplines like juggling or hand balancing and stuff, or tight wire even, like it's a discipline that the school has decided that like in order to get to the level we would want you to be at for graduation, you need 4 years of study, not 3.
Sure, yeah.
So a lot of people go through that. I was lucky enough on doing Chinese pole to not have needed to do that. And sometimes there are artists that are like incredible on the discipline they do, but they're not really trained in acrobatics or any other things. And they decide that it's better if they do another year so they can get a more well-rounded education. But usually it is a 3-year program. So when you get to your 3rd year, it's kind of like preparation to go off and be an artist. So the year is usually like from end of August / beginning of September all the way till June. But it's regular training up until April, where we have like our final exams, which is like our épreuve synthèse is what we call it. And it's essentially like the most important exam of your life, but it's also not. It's really just like 3 dates where you get to show your act to the school and other casting companies and stuff. But it's really just like, honestly, the most exciting show you can ever do in your life, because we get control over what we do on stage. Like we complete artistic control. We can do whatever we want. We can use whatever song we want. We can design the lighting. We design the costumes. Like we design everything on our own.
Nice.
Which is like the one time in a career that you have control over everything. Because a lot of times in a show, like you maybe have control over what you're doing in the act and stuff, or like what technique you use, but someone else designs the costume and someone else designs the lighting or chooses the music.
Yeah.
Which is what it is, but it's really nice as an artist to like finish and have a really high quality video as well of like you as an artist and what you ended up making after 3 years or 4 years of training at the school.
Do you find it all though? I mean, I think about like going to auditions as an actor, where if you're going to audition for a certain part, you might dress a certain way to kind of influence the casting directors that you would be right for that part. And I'm wondering if within these presentations, you find any pressure to kind of tone your act to a certain style. For example, Elwaz or the Fingers, they certainly have like their own styles. And I'm wondering if you feel any pressure, or if you notice any of that in the graduation acts.
I personally haven't. Maybe people do, but like I think living in Montreal, we all kind of get influenced by all those companies and all the shows that come traveling through, because like the Tohu Performance Space, which a lot of companies visit, is also like a block away. It's like really close by, and it's amazing. So I think like maybe some people get like influenced and like feel like they need to go in a certain way, but I definitely have never felt that. It's more of just like I want to be who I am on stage, and like to figure that out as who I am as an artist, and like hopefully one of the companies will want to work with me.
Nice.
And I would love to do that, but it's not like I'm like I need to work with this company, so I have to be like this, because then it won't be as genuine, and they'll be able to tell.
So what is the company you would want to work for? What's going on after school?
Honestly, I can't decide exactly which company I'd want to work for, and it also like would depend on which company's hiring for a show that needs Chinese pole or rope with a male and stuff. So like I don't know yet, but I definitely want to end up in a show that's like traveling the world, because I really want to see the world, especially since like I'm going to be graduating at 20 years old. Like I really want to just kind of visit as many places as I can and just be able to do what I love at the same time. So like hopefully that happens, but if it doesn't, like it's not the end of the world if I end up with something else, but I'm crossing my fingers.
Yeah. It's always nice to be an artist working.
Yes.
In any capacity.
Yes. I hope to like get a job. That's like my step one. It's like let's get something as an offer. And from there, then I'll take it from there.
And this is something, I guess, also about this school, is you get classes in this as well, networking and...
Yeah, so our 3rd year, I haven't done it yet, so I don't actually know.
Oh, okay.
But I have friends who have taken it. We have this class called Career Management. Like, in order to graduate, you need to have, like, a website that you built for yourself as an artist. You have to have, like, a video demo, professional photos taken, a resume, like, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. What else? You need to have, like, cards that, like, describe you, who you are. So if you meet someone, you can, like, hand them a business card. And they really, like, kind of help you prepare to move on and stuff. And I've heard that, like, they tell you, like, if you're doing corporate gigs, how it's, like, what the rates usually are in different places currently, and like they try to like prepare you as much as they can.
Sure.
to go work for those companies and stuff. But they also are very open to like, if you want to make your own company, you can talk to them, because I think our coach, our teacher for that class is very much like in the whole world of circus, and like I think he books shows for different places, so he really just knows the entire like community very, very, very well, and he's super open to helping all the time.
Do you know if they mention anything about social media in those classes as well?
They definitely do. They like very much encourage you to make a Facebook page and like an Instagram if you don't already have one. And this is actually kind of funny. They try and tell you which hashtags to use, and they kind of like update it every year. And I think last year one of my friends told me that like, yeah, they were talking about how you should start using like hashtag circus around the world, and everyone burst out laughing because
I just high-fived
and
him.
the guy was like, what's happening? And one of them was like, well, that's wrong, you'll meet him next year. Like he runs that, and he was like, oh really?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Killing the game.
I guess.
You're already being taught
Yeah.
at ENC.
And I'm still at ENC, which I find really funny. And I actually just remembered something. Going back to having amazing coaches, one of the things I really love about them is they're so like, because they become our friends in a sense because we spend so much time with them. When I was doing the festival this summer, I was doing Tisch for Montreal Cirque out in the streets and stuff. And I hadn't been teaching in a very long time and stuff, but we were like working on our act and stuff, and we had coaches from school who were like helping in the creation process because they happened to also work for the festival. But also like I filmed like one of the runs, and I sent it to like my personal like rope coach, who wasn't my coach at the time because it's like summer vacation and they're doing other things and stuff. And literally within like, I sent it I think like 9 p.m. By the time I woke up the next morning, I think it was at like 11 or something, she and one of the other coaches at school, who's not even really my coach, but she helped me a little bit during a different show, had like full-on long responses of like what I should maybe work on is movement-based, like what technique to try, and like how to fix some technique and stuff. And this was like on a Friday night, I think. They took it out of their free time to like sit down, watch the video, and give really, really, really incredible comments. And I feel like that just goes to show like how invested the coaches are in us and how much they care about us, because they're willing to spend time, like I'm sure it was completely unpaid, for something completely outside of the school just to help us because they want to.
My last question is silly because you're so young, but what advice would you give yourself at the beginning of your circus, I don't want to say career for you, but like your circus journey?
I would tell myself maybe to like, don't focus so much on I think I kind of did this, but I would say to like, be like, yeah, you're doing the right thing, and to not focus on like, this tiny show is the most important thing in my life and stuff, because like, having like little showcases and stuff, it's like, it's really fun and it gives you performance experience. I think it was in a way it's better to focus, if you want to go to a huge school and stuff that's like really, really hard to get into in a way, to spend the time training more. I always preferred, at least when I was younger, to like not do a showcase every few months. I'd rather maybe do one a year or not even, because I was performing in dance and stuff as well. So I didn't feel the need, and I'd done so many shows already, I didn't feel the need to perform all the time, because I'd rather just spend the time training, because when you make a show, you don't have time to train as much.
Right.
So I just say to push yourself to keep training and trying to improve as much as you can technically. But when you do a performance, get as much as you can out of it and remember it very well, and then use that the next time you perform, even if it's 2 years later.
Yeah.
Because our bodies are only young for so long. Like I know I'm 20 right now and I'm still very young. The more you learn when you're little, the better, if you're starting out when you're really little. So just like take the time to improve as much as you can and get as much as you can out of everyone you meet.
It's great advice.
We'll see if it's great advice.
Time will tell, Ron Oppenheimer.
In 10 years, we'll see what I'm doing.
Time will tell. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure to talk to you today.
This has been very fun.
Awesome.
That was my interview with the amazing Ron Oppenheimer. Even though he's not technically a professional in the industry, he's certainly on his way. And I hope his interview was enlightening to what students at ENC go through in order to prime their bodies and create new skills and tricks to work at a very high level upon graduation. The other day on Instagram, I put out the question, who are some of your favorite circus artists to follow? And some of the names I got over and over were Lauren Joy Hurley, Mizuki Shinagawa, I hope I'm saying your last name right, Mizuki, Tanya Burka. Not only is there a trend toward vertical aerial, which I think speaks more to my audience, but also all of these artists are graduates or will soon be graduates from ENC.
And the reason that they're so engaging to follow is because they are some of the top artists in their craft. Earlier, in the interview, I compared ENC to Harvard, and I think this is true, but I also wanted to say that just as Harvard is highly regarded, so is Oxford University in England or the National University of Singapore. Likewise, there are amazing circus schools all over the world. Many of them have an age cap for acceptance. Luckily, unlike being a brain surgeon, for instance, you don't necessarily have to have gone to a school in order to become a professional circus artist. But you do need to do what they do at ENC. You need to get a good coach. You need a reliable and safe training facility. You need to do your own artistic research to create an act and make connections to the companies you want to work for, if that's the path you want to go. I'm looking forward to see where Ron goes after graduation. You can follow him on Instagram at Circus Around the World or at his own account at Ron Oppenheimer. We've already talked about maybe doing another episode in a few years to check back in and see where he is in his career, if the podcast still exists. Man, I wonder if it will last that long. If you want it to, go to patreon.com/theartistathlete, become a Patreon, give me some money. You can also follow me on Instagram for training tips at The Artist Athlete. I'm on Facebook, The Artist Athlete, or online at theartistathlete.com. And that's it for me this week, friends, fans, and enemies. Shannon out. The Artist Athlete podcast is supported solely by donations from people like you. Here's what some of those people have to say.
Hey there, friends, fans, and enemies. This is Chris Alston, Patreon of the Artist Athlete podcast. Straps artist and lyra performer and acrobat out of Greenville, South Carolina. So, if you're ever passing through, make sure to stop in and see me and my friends. We have a wonderful space, and we'd love to see you.